Hey guys, it's Raoul Monks here, founder and director of Flume Sales Training. Thanks so much for joining us today for our Flume Sales Chat, where we are joined by Eva Campbell. Hey Eva.
Hi there, thanks Raoul.
So Eva is a CMO with extensive experience across B2C and B2B. And today she's going to be giving her own views around what has changed from a marketer, a buyer's perspective in this period, and what that means longer term for the relationship that marketers and buyers need with both salespeople and with events companies. So incredibly important views we're going to hear today, and it all ties in to Flume's commitment right now to help create a benchmark for sales excellence post-outbreak. And these views are going to help shape what is going to work for you as an industry and also as a sales professional moving forward. So Eva, welcome. And can you just tell us a tiny bit about yourself, and then we'll just dive into kind of what's happening for you and buyers in the market?
Sure. I'm a marketing professional with over 15 years of experience across B2B and B2C sectors. In the last couple of years, I've been working closely with businesses on enabling their digital transformation journeys and helping them adapt to the new world of inbound. In terms of today's sessions, the views I will be sharing with you are views of my own as a marketing expert. I'm speaking on behalf of any company.
Okay, that's fair enough. So tell me and the audience here, what's changed? Because I think there's probably a few obvious things, but tell us what's changed from a client's perspective, because ultimately the only reason events companies and salespeople should work in any certain way is if it's going to make it easier for the client to say yes. And if we can understand what's changed, then I think it's really going to help. So tell us kind of your view on that.
Sure. There have been a number of obvious changes for marketers in the last couple of months. There also have been a number of non-obvious changes. I'll start with obvious changes and budgets. So as soon as the crisis started, companies focused on aggressive cost cuts. And so this had a direct impact on marketing budgets. So what happened then for marketers, the key priority for them was to focus on adapting their marketing plans. They were doing full audits, they were reviewing what campaigns are going out, whether they're relevant or not, because of the new reality. Is there any messaging that's going out that's creating noise rather than adding value? So we noticed that 9 out of 10 marketers were either putting their campaigns on hold or they're putting them under review. And while marketers were trying to figure out how to adapt to this new challenging situation and what their next move should be, there was a sharp decrease in marketing activity overall. Another obvious reason is around our customers, obvious change was around customers' moods. So we noticed change in their needs, and we noticed change in their behavior. So as companies are there been reevaluating their short-term and their long-term goals, marketers have been listening very, very closely to see how they can add value right now. So marketers are rethinking the strategies, they're repositioning the product, they're formulating new marketing goals outside of those revenue goals, things like brand loyalty, for example. They're really working on redesigning the brand purpose, see how they can serve their communities best right now. As ultimately, in the long run, what marketers want their brands to be remembered for is how they help the customers to get through this crisis.
That's so interesting. Okay, sorry, carry on.
Another obvious change that relates to customers is a change in their behavior. So it's very different how they're interacting with us right now. It's very different how they're communicating. Then again, marketers are listening very closely and monitoring those communication metrics so they can adapt their communication plans accordingly and be effective there. But what I've noticed by speaking to marketers from different sectors and different regions, there seems to be a theme then that marketers are moving towards content marketing and account-based marketing, the two big things they're investing in right now. And another thing is they're testing new channels. For example, social media channels. They're playing a much bigger role right now in communication than traditional channels because they're very direct and very easy to access. So these are the kind of changes, obvious ones that relate to customers, and there's been some other obvious changes, similar to you all, around internal stuff like resources, around new ways of working or new ways of decision making. But in addition to those obvious changes, there have been some non-obvious changes too.
Yeah.
And it's striking and really positive to see how marketers are coming together to help each other overcome this crisis. We've seen loads of senior marketing leaders being very proactive out there, very openly speaking about what they're doing, what they're investing in, what results they're getting, what's working, what's not working. So there's a very new dynamic how we, as marketers are working together. So it's really, really positive. And another non-obvious change has been really inspiring is how marketers, how motivated they are to make that positive change right now and help the businesses. So, you see junior marketers, rising up, being proactive, coming up with new ideas, sharing online, like really becoming active in this community. So this is something that's also non-obvious but very inspiring to see.
I love these. So just to kind of clarify this, because there's so much there, and I'm so inspired to hear it. So a couple of things that kind of come through, some of the more obvious things. I don't know how obvious they are when you're in a sales position. They might be obvious from a marketer's position or a buyer's position, but number one, kind of redefining your purpose has kind of been everything and making sure that's happening. Number two is this kind of putting yourself into the community's persona and understanding the vital areas that are really important right now for those people. And so that is kind of building those buyer/audience personas and being able to adapt in a way. But then the other thing is you're kind of testing and experimenting and learning about new platforms. And because of the change in behavior with the audience, working out what is and isn't working. On top of that, I told you there's a lot. On top of that, what's also interesting is that you guys are sharing, like the marketing world, the buyers are sharing what's working and what's not working. And it's interesting because at Flume, we talk about a lot that the two ways that the sales community needs to add value to a buyer's life to make a conversation worth paying for in itself is to, number one, share information, stories and insights about other people like the buyer you're speaking to in terms of what works, what doesn't work, how to avoid mistakes. But the other angle is teach them around the audience, how they've changed, what they prioritize, what's urgent, and teach them around that kind of audience persona to help them understand that behavior to adapt their messages. And it kind of feels like that's what broadly you're kind of saying, but some of it's happening also from other buyers in the social community that you've got already.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about this community feel right now. So we're all coming together to make impact, to help each other get out of this very difficult situation.
You mentioned earlier about the audience, the customer, end user, I'll use the word audience, but what they care about is kind of how to come through this in the right way, in the best way, in the strongest way. What would you say that is the core thing that, I know it's a bit of a catch-all, but the marketers, the buyers care about themselves right now?
Well, making positive impact. I think making positive impact on their communities is very important. Ultimately marketers want their actions and their brands to be remembered for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And also making positive impact on their businesses. So really understanding how they should be adapting to this situation right now, what the next steps should be, and making right decisions.
Yeah, okay. And I'd imagine there's kind of more risk around those decisions as well. So that making the right decision is even more important than ever before. Because I'd imagine, and I'm actually interested in this, so maybe another question, but that decision-making process. So if you look before the crisis, the stat was that in theory, there's 6.8 people involved in the average decision in B2B marketing or B2B buying. What we're hearing is that not necessarily that's gone up or down, but maybe the people who are involved in that decision-making is changing a little bit. What are you finding? What are your views on kind of how decision-making has changed for buyers?
All those obvious changes for marketers that I mentioned before, they obviously had big impact on the decision-making process. There are two things there. The first one is that marketers are resisting quick decisions right now. They're really taking their time to compile data, monitor and to digest new findings. The last thing, marketers want to do right now is to make any decisions on assumptions. And the second thing is exactly what we said just now. There are more people involved in the decision-making process right now, and there are more senior people involved in that process. And there are a couple of reasons there as to why. Decisions that we're making right now are business critical decisions. Businesses and marketers have restricted budgets. Another thing is that we have this, need to consult others in the business as well, to understand wider business objections and wider business objectives as well. But ultimately, it's much more difficult than ever before, to get a sign-off for a new investment or a new project.
Okay, so tell us, probably quite an obvious one, I suppose, but what is stopping decisions? Because we've always said it's not easy for a B2B buyer to make decisions. In fact, it's very difficult because of those decision makers and the risk and all of that. And I just feel like everything's going to be so exaggerated right now for clients. What do you think the main thing that is stopping decisions? Is it that decision-making group? Is it the fear of putting yourself head above the parapet and saying, I want to do this? Like, what's actually the big thing that stops decision going through?
Yeah, well, I think it's not having enough data to compare that, to create that compelling business case. So what marketers are expected to do right now more than ever is to demonstrate, how what sort of impact an investment will bring to the business, how that investment will enable meeting those new marketing goals and revenue goals altogether. And also, what impact it's going to have a likely return on investment, whether that's short term or long term. So if we're unable to put together strong enough arguments to support that business case, then senior stakeholders and finance decision makers will hesitate to sign it off.
So, okay, so that kind of leads the conversation a little bit towards the sales experience in my head, which is almost, I'm thinking, whose responsibility is that? Is that the marketing person or is that the salespeople? And again, at Flume, we always talk about trying to help the client build a watertight business case and create proposals and help them sell onto that 6.8 and identify mobilizers. And there's all this different stuff that we talk about. But I'm curious in terms of kind of the expectations this is setting, because I was speaking to a buyer 2 days ago and they kept on saying about there's so much red tape, but we have put 2 sponsorship options forward which have been passed off. And they started talking about how amazing the case was that had been put towards them by the salesperson. It was so compelling because it was around the audience and how they needed it, and it was positioned right in the right messaging, and the platform made sense. And they almost kind of co-created that business case with them. But I don't know kind of your take in terms of the expectations of that relationship with a salesperson that are kind of being set now. And you talked about data, like, not all salespeople sell with data. Not all salespeople think about creating a business case. What's kind of your take on the expectations and the future of that relationship that's necessary between buyers and sellers?
Sure. Well, I think there are a couple of things there. Firstly, what I would focus on is to understanding your customers' urgent needs and priorities right now, and taking that information and going back to your business, your stakeholders, and adapting your offering so you can meet those new needs. To be very creative there. Maybe little things that would help are if you can make your offer risk-free. If you can offer a free trial, that would definitely be something that's quite helpful. A new normal seems to be discounts and lower prices. Obviously, something that could be damaging if you were looking to apply it to your current offering, but if you're creating new offering, then perhaps it's something you could experiment with, given that businesses are having problems with cash flow right now. When you have this compelling solution, go back to the marketer and work with them on having that introduced to the business. Something interesting that you said there, actually, I think, understanding what a decision-making process for your customer is right now will be extremely helpful. What are the steps of the decision-making process, and what kind of stakeholders are being involved in the decision-making process. So it's easy for you to work with the marketer to prepare them for those, for those different steps in decision-making and help them work through any objections.
Yeah, I think that's something that's so vital, and we have kind of seen mechanisms work before the crisis along the lines of kind of really, and you kind of talked about it there, really partnering with that buyer, the client, and getting them so entrenched in the solution and owning it that then you go into a conversation and say, okay, we're working together now, we're a little team, we want to get this through. What do we need to do to get this through? Who's going to be involved? Who's going to push back? Who do we need to get on board to really drive this? What are the objections? Let's create a business case. And I think what you're saying is that is more important right now than ever before, being a partner, being an advocate, and building that case together.
Yes, exactly.